When a self-proclaimed HOA enforcer threatens my Kwanzaa lights with a 5,000 fine, can our vibrant community turn her cold entitlement into a celebration of cultural pride? Before we begin today's deranged HOA story, tell me you haven't had your fill of irrational and power-grabbing HOA nonsense. Smash that like button to show you're on my side, and drop a comment if you've ever faced off against an overbearing homeowners association. Be sure to subscribe and ring the notification bell, because this saga's only getting crazier from here. The energy in the air crackled like a live wire as I stood there, holding the metaphorical gavel, a beacon of disarray against Karen's drab rulebook. It was straight up theatrical. I could practically hear the imaginary drums beating in the background, setting the stage for a showdown of epic proportions. As we rallied behind the magnificent glow of our Kwanzaa lights, I couldn't help but revel in the absurdity of it all. The sight of my neighbors, who would usually be hiding behind their curtains, now shamelessly joining our vibrant uprising. Honestly, if circus music had been playing, we would have all been juggling flaming torches at that moment. "Can you believe this?" I hollered, laughing harder than I had in a long time at the sheer lunacy of our situation. "We're not causing chaos, Karen. We're creating an environment bursting with culture, creativity, and a considerable amount of flair. This is a celebration, not a funeral." The laughter around me grew louder, as if the unspoken rebellion had become a thunderous symphony, drowning out Karen's attempts to restore order. My neighbors shouted their support, clapping and dancing, and even Mr. Garcia, bless his salsa-loving heart, led the charge with enthusiastic footwork right behind me. It felt like a revolution was weaving itself into the fabric of our lives, scrawled in bright colors and dignified drama, and I was here for all of it. I scanned the crowd, my heart swelling with exhilaration, as I spotted Rita sharing guerrilla strategy with a couple of kids who were now working on making silly signs in support of our Kwanzaa lights. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, if we don't capture this moment for social media, are we even living? I yelled, struck by the ferocious urgency of promoting our newfound audacity along with the bright clothing draping my body. Suddenly, just when the crowd seemed to reach a fever pitch, claps and cheers mingling with the strong scent of my neighbor's barbecue wafting through the air. Extra crispy perfection. Karen worked herself into a lather as if she'd sucked on a lemon filled with acid. Her icy blue eyes shot daggers at me and the neighbors, narrowing like a hawk on the hunt. "This is unacceptable," she screeched, gesturing wildly at the festive decorations, which, I can assure you, radiated more pride and passion than she ever could. "You are all breaking HOA guidelines. This is not how we uphold respectability in this neighborhood." Oh, Karen. I pondered whether she was well aware that respectability is often laced with a thimbleful of real connection, joy, and actual celebration. Query: have you ever seen a neighborhood without joy? It sounds like the description of a ghost town. The absurdity of her complaints made my spirits soar even higher. "Wow, Karen, I had no idea you were the arbiter of neighborhood decorum," I chimed back, letting my voice rise above the chorus of laughter. "But bless your soul, you missed the memo. We're tired of suffocating in blandness. Today, we rise like vibrant flowers sprouting out of the cracks in the concrete. It's time to let these lights shine." I gestured around me, taking in the seemingly random assemblage of joyful noise bursting forth from families now invigorated by the prospect of reclaiming their streets. Before I knew it, folks were starting to chant a simple yet infectious rhyme. "Color, light, unity's what's right. Ho ho, let's embrace the delight." I laughed so hard at the witty culmination of our neighborhood's spirit being transformed into a frontline national anthem. In that exhilarating moment, the tides were dramatically shifting, and I could practically see the shimmers of doubt chipping away at Karen's polished exterior. The delightfully chaotic rhythm of rebellion swirled around us, and I had this fever dream sense that we were shaping history, right here at our little HOA meeting. I watched in disbelief as a few of Karen's former supporters flinched slightly at her claims, torn between the soul-sucking fear of her authority and their urge to dance in these bold decorations. "Karen, you might want to check your rulebook for the fine print that discusses the right to express holiday spirit," Rita chimed in, dancing dramatically in front of her as if to convey the beauty of our lights. "Because, folks, you know what I see?" She twirled her way toward our cacophonous circle. "A neighborhood full of color and joy. Who can possibly object to that?" As the energy surged through the crowd, I leaned into the moment, riding the wave of camaraderie. People caught up in their daily routines were slowly awakening to the realization that tired traditions can be shaken up, finding beauty in celebration rather than oppression. I cleared my throat and took a leap. "Do we not have the right to showcase who we are with zest?" Are we simply supposed to dim our lights to avoid discomfort? Heck no, I declared, feeling like an orator of an ancient legend, stirring the people to embrace our true selves. The cheers grew louder, echoing against Karen's faltering facade. I could practically see neon signs blinking behind her drooping shoulders as she processed our vibrant tidal wave of perseverance. Realizing the meeting had long since transcended into sheer joyous rebellion, Karen stood flustered, clutching the rulebook like it was a life raft in a sea of chaos. You could almost hear the wheels turning, contemplating lifeboats, tiresome lines of, "This isn't over," but honestly, it felt over for her. I spotted a flicker of warmth and delight in the corners of her frowning mouth. Maybe she remembered the Kwanzaa lights we'd all grown to love, or perhaps she just feared the swift and daunting wave of the collective heartbeat of our community, which pulsated with joy, inclusivity, and a desire for something more than her monotonous authority. Would this meeting signal a revolution in our community, or would Karen kick back and make a last-ditch effort at restoring her suffocating grip on our lives? With laughter swirling behind me, I firmly stood my ground. What awaited us next was anyone's guess, but one thing was certain. We were all primed and ready to battle for our place in the shimmering lights of our beloved community. The town hall meeting felt like a carnival of emotions as I stood at the front, an unlikely hero looking for a rousing victory against the unyielding silence enforced by Karen and her clique of HOA goons. People had shown up in droves, their faces alight with a cacophony of frustration, hope, and dignity. I spotted old Mr. Perkins in the back, usually so reserved that he could be mistaken for a taxidermy subject at a local museum. A straight-laced fellow who could recite bylaws on the paint drying on his home. But today, he was standing roiling in rebellious delight with a Kwanzaa-themed Santa hat perched precariously on his head. The energy in the room swirled like glitter in a snow globe, and boy, did I relish the moment. Today, I thought to myself, these walls will witness history. I was sure everyone in this room was ready to swap out their bland holiday gatherings for a festival that actually embraced joy instead of a colorless calendar filled with HOA rules straight from the Grim Reaper's mailbox. As the meeting commenced, Karen perched high behind her podium, like a lioness surveying her pride, silver-haired and immovable, or, as I like to think of her, the Queen of Quagmire. She clutched her notes tightly, not an ounce of laughter dancing on her lips as I fired off the proposal that would turn the tide, introducing revised community guidelines that had inclusivity, diversity, and the fabulousness of cultural celebrations woven right into their fabric. The audience hung on my every word, like a row of enthusiastic bobblehead dolls. Imagine a neighborhood where all traditions, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, Diwali, or simply a BBQ cook-off where the smell of ribs entices you to your neighbor's house could be celebrated. There must be rules that nurture our community instead of confining it. A collective sigh echoed through the air. I swear I even saw Karen's left eye twitch, which I took as a sign her rigid reign of terror was on the brink of collapse, one demented deadline at a time. The rebuttal was bittersweet, like dark chocolate dipped in sarcasm. "Jamal," Karen's voice sliced through the air, shattering the unity we were slowly constructing like a proverbial rock through crystal glass. "Do you really believe we need more of this fantastical nonsense? We already have a structured way to celebrate the holidays, and that does involve simplicity, not chaos." "Whoa now, chaos!" My God, was she even listening to herself? I struggled to stifle a howl of laughter, almost imagining the HOA mandate for serious holiday decorations stretching out like an invisible iron curtain over our homes. Was she really suggesting formal ornamentation as the pinnacle of festive togetherness? I half expected her to roll out a figurative mat of order, very well-behaved wreaths and artificial snow that could be constructed without personal expression. Tell me again, Karen, when did festival and functionality become synonymous? The humor in her absurdity sparked creativity in the crowd, like tossing a match into a pile of fireworks. Families were rallying, whispering their concerns, and relishing in the chance to express themselves for once. I could feel that magic rising, a community gaining its voice like a baby bird, ready to leave the nest. I invited Rita to take the stage with me when Karen declared her indignant cross-examination, and oh boy, was it a sight to behold. Rita strutted forward, the embodiment of spirit as she caught the audience's attention with her one-of-a-kind holiday dance, twirling in a kaleidoscope of colors, turquoise blue, fiery orange, and sizzling reds that would make every festive palate cower in shame. This is what we want, Karen. Celebration, togetherness, vibrant culture. It's not about following some stale guidelines, it's about flourishing, she exclaimed, tossing glitter in the air like confetti, blasting through the remaining walls of Karen's cold fortress, captivating every heart and melting frigid pretentiousness in the air. As the rhythm of our voice surged the heartbeat of the meeting, I finally took on the mantle of a riled-up orator. "Ladies and gentlemen of the understandably disenfranchised HOA folks," I bellowed dramatically, "it is time we take our home and reclaim it from the shackles of repression. This isn't just about lights. It's about sharing the stories that color our lives. Are we willing to drown in dull conformity, or shall we rise to the occasion, be the song of harmony?" Applause erupted, and I felt the electrifying surge of power rush through me as we effectively dethroned any doubt, fear, or hesitation that lingered in the room like a bad odor from a long-forgotten casserole. We were firing on all cylinders, charging straight into a revolutionary spirit. I was practically feeling myself become a luminous monument of expression, a hope-driven warrior ready to lead this colorful army of light into battle. But just as I thought victory was within our grasp, Karen cleared her throat, poised as if conjuring a haunting refrain from the depths of the HOA void. "But how?" she began, her voice steadied with a hint of condescension. "Do we ensure this remains within the bounds of home values? What will the property assessors think?" Oh yes, there it was, the grand facade of entitlement. It was like a magic trick gone wrong, the crackerjack show of maintaining property values at the expense of humanity's glow. "You know what, Karen?" I boldly interrupted, riding high on the crowd's ferocious energy. "The only thing that should be assessed is the layered legacy of our community's richness. When did our homes become nothing more than a paper trail? We live here for each other, and that's what ultimately adds value." With every word I vowed to shine like the Kwanzaa lights we decked out, I could see the cracks in Karen's icy demeanor widen, giving way to uncertainty. The uproar was shifting. The people's voices intertwined with my refrains crescendoed into a glorious anthem of collective spirit, a wake-up call ringing loudly. The prognosis was bright, and the future an illuminating display of our rich tapestry of lives woven together. My heart swelled as I concluded our proposal for more open-minded guidelines, my voice bursting with contagious enthusiasm. Let us illuminate our traditions, embrace varied cultures, and paint our community in thundering vibrance. Who's with me? The roar of affirmation from my neighbors hit me like a euphoric tidal wave. I stepped down, victorious. If the glimmer in my heart was any indicator, we were on the precipice of something grand. And as the energy buzzed around me, I couldn't help but wonder, what was next for us in this bright journey of dismantling entitlement and creating a joyous, inclusive neighborhood? We had captured the essence of freedom right in our hands, our Kwanzaa lights becoming more than decoration. They had sparked a wildfire of cultural pride. As we dimmed the lights for the night, sparking the glow of unity in the air, I knew once more that if anyone dared to threaten me for over-decoration, well, let's just say we'll be ready. Indeed, as I stood there, basking in the glow of my Kwanzaa lights, which were dancing like joyful little sprites against the brisk December morning, Karen Thompson appeared on the scene, her khaki cargo shorts billowing like some ridiculous flag of entitlement. It was as if she had been practicing her scowl in front of a mirror, because that expression, composed of equal parts disdain and overzealous authority, was on full display. With a smirk that made me want to roll my eyes right out of my head, she declared my decorations non-seasonal. Non-seasonal? What, are they supposed to grow on a seasonal tree like the plastic holly she'd likely draped over her own tasteless abode? Clearly my burst of cultural exuberance had struck a nerve in her dull little universe, composed of white lights and silent nights. I could practically hear her gears turning behind those meticulously manicured blonde bangs as she threatened me with a 5,000 daily fine for every light that dared to flicker on her HOA's jurisdiction. I stood there, mouth agape, wretched laughter bubbling up inside me like boiling water about to spill over. I mean, really, a 5,000 fine for some twinkling lights? Did she think I was living in a sparkle-studded kingdom where I would simply throw money around like it was confetti? Hell no. Growing up in a culture that celebrated defiance through color and vibrancy, I was absolutely not going to let some first-class Karen dim my festive spirit, or my lights for that matter. My mind raced as I pictured the hilarious backlash of this situation, the labeling of Karen as the Grinch of the HOA as her lamenting echoes echoed through our suburban streets. With every tick of the clock, the absurdity of the entire interaction fueled my rebellion. "All right," I muttered under my breath, a mischievous glint forming in my eye. "If you think you can snuff out my shine, Wait until you see what I can do. It was the perfect storm of cultural pride and neighborhood camaraderie that began to brew in my mind. What if I turned this into a community celebration? Corporate Karen didn't stand a chance against the power of festive defiance, and spontaneity was now my middle name. Rita Johnson, my firecracker of a neighbor, just happened to call me at that exact moment. As if psychic, she burst through my front door, wearing an outfit that looked like a carnival had thrown up on her. "What's going on?" she asked, notes of excitement stitching through her words. I explained my encounter with Queen Karen, her smirk-y face still etched into my memory like a crushing visual joke. Rita, always the queen of rallying the troops, jumped in with her endless positivity. "Jamal, what if we turned this into a neighborhood Kwanzaa light extravaganza? We could cover the entire block." For a brief moment, the gears of rebellion seemed to align perfectly. I was practically vibrating with hope, and I hopped into action, whipping out my phone like I was about to embark on a covert operation. I shot off a quick message to our neighborhood group chat, sketching out the idea like it was a state of emergency. Because honestly, in Karen's HOA, it might just as well have been. "Attention, neighborhood. Anyone who loves Kwanzaa or just finds Karen completely outrageous is invited to spread the light. We'll be showcasing our beautiful decorations for the world, and Karen to see." Not only did my fingers fly across the screen, but I could feel adrenaline pumping through my veins. This wasn't just about lights. This was about solidarity, about celebrating our differences, our cultures, and the absolute absurdity of Karen's quest for homogeneous suburbia. The chat exploded with reactions. "Count me in. Let's show her we're more than just predictable white lights. I have decorations I've been saving for ages." I could hardly contain my glee. What started as an attempt at suppression became an electrifying movement that transformed our street into a kaleidoscope of culture and color. Imagine my neighbors, all united under the banner of festive spirit as string lights, banners, and handcrafted art lined our block. It was stunning chaos that encapsulated our diverse backgrounds and shared laughter, the kind that made the frost of December feel like a warm embrace. As day turned to night, the sight was downright magical, a resplendent rebellion that shone brighter than any vintage Christmas light could hope to. I stood on my porch, arms crossed, smirking like I'd just won a championship trophy, as I watched families step out and marvel at our makeshift winter wonderland. And it was golden, illuminating the essence of community versus the tyrannical reign of a Karen across the street. I couldn't help but wonder, what would Karen think now, face to face with the glorious defiance of her neighborhood? Would there be another smug smirk, or perhaps an eye roll worthy of an Oscar for dramatic performance? Only time would tell, but one thing was for sure. This holiday season was about to get a lot more exciting. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue across our now festooned neighborhood, I felt a swell of pride rise within me. The iconic colors of Kwanzaa, vibrant red, fierce black, and regal green, were strung across every yard like the universe itself had conspired to celebrate heritage in the most dramatic fashion possible. My own home had transformed into a beacon of cultural flamboyance, but it was the collective spirit of my neighbors that truly took the crown. Who knew Mr. Anderson from down the street had a stash of neon 1970s beads ready to pop at just the right moment? Or that the Rodriguez family could whip up a full-on Kwanzaa banner that rivaled anything you'd see in a parade? This was a moment of sheer joy, a grassroots celebration of defiance against the overbearing grayness of conformity wrapped in Karen's drab little universe. But, oh honey, the pièce de résistance? We had arranged a full-on Kwanzaa festival on our usually pristine cul-de-sac. Rita claimed the role of event planner extraordinaire, and with the fervor of a cheerleader at the last-minute pep rally, she was set to pull out all the stops. "Listen, Jamal, we'll have food, music, and I even convinced Mrs. Patterson to officiate a mini dance-off," she squealed, her eyes gleaming like disco balls. In that moment, I could visualize the very essence of community taking center stage, a dazzling collection of families from every corner of the neighborhood joining hands and creating an impromptu mosh pit. Karen, that self-proclaimed queen of normalcy, likely wouldn't know what hit her. A wave of hysteric laughter bubbled up as I imagined her peering out from behind her drapes, cringing at the beautiful pandemonium I was conjuring up. Amidst the mounting excitement, I was suddenly brought back to the reality of our upcoming showdown. You see, Karen wasn't just going to let this slide. She had been prowling around like a hawk, ready to swoop down with her talons out. I could practically hear her cackling from across the street, concocting her next plot to impose her staunch standards on our popping celebration. A subtle thrill of fear ran through me. What crazy rules would she invent next? I could see her contacting Taco Bell's corporate office to complain about the lack of green beans in the Kwanzaa meal options we'd concocted. I almost wished I'd recorded her eyebrow-raising irritation at the influx of festive decor, just for the archival records of Karen, the HOA witch. As the day of our spectacular festival arrived, the air crackled with enthusiasm, laced with the smell of mouth-watering jollof rice, tamales, and an inexplicable plethora of Christmas cookies sporting the Kwanzaa colors. Neighbors stepped outside, wearing their most festive attire as children dashed around like it was a scene straight out of a holiday movie. Pure joy and chaos wrapped in a bow. Health-conscious Mrs. Thompson, who usually rolled her eyes at everything fun, even arrived with her famous quinoa salad, which, I must admit, looked marginally scrumptious. Rita took it upon herself to lead a community dance, spinning her silk scarf like she was training for a wild Broadway show. In that moment, all eyes were on us. Not just the neighborhood, but the very essence of what it meant to stand together against a bureaucracy that tried to dictate our joy. It was both liberating and ridiculous, stirring the excitement in me until I was on the verge of bursting into song. Just as the sun dipped low, painting our street in hues worthy of an artist's palette, a familiar figure emerged from her fortress, a very distinct glimmer of manicured blonde under the growing twilight. It was Karen. The moment felt like something out of a movie, where the villain finally confronts the hero. She marched to the center of her kingdom like a queen, with a warped sense of entitlement, a finger raised like a gavel of justice ready to be violated. I could practically feel the collective gasps from my neighbors, taking in her approach like a ship steering toward an iceberg. What would she say? What edict would she bring forth? The tension thickened in the air, the laughter dying down as her hawk-like gaze swept across our colorful upheaval. I straightened myself, suddenly feeling like our standoff with the Karens of the world was about to reach its dramatic peak. "Ladies and gentlemen," I rallied, clapping my hands like a mild-mannered town crier about to break news of a royal wedding. "Celebrate, for today is not just about Kwanzaa, but about the freedom to express who we are in every glorious color imaginable. Down with cookie-cutter traditions and up with cultural kaleidoscopes." Just as I finished, Rita jumped into her salsa groove, a level of enthusiasm that reminded me of the universal language of dance and joy that brought us all together. I could see whispers becoming giggles, giggles breaking into laughter, and suddenly, the kids were twirling with their makeshift decorations like little pinwheels of festivity. Karen, always the symbol of authority, was now met with a tidal wave of joy she might just find hard to stifle. What was she going to do? Call the police? File a complaint? She looked utterly bewildered, and I couldn't help but chuckle internally, imagining her strategizing how to maintain her grip on power while surrounded by spontaneously joyful revelers. Would today mark the day we forever changed her perception of Kwanzaa, or was it simply her next headache that awaited? "Bring it on, Karen," I mouthed silently, ready for the showdown of historical proportions between blandness and celebration. Who knew a handful of Kwanzaa lights could cause such ruckus? But one thing was absolutely for sure. This neighborhood was never going back to a dreary monochrome ever again. Just as I finished rallying my neighbors, I noted with glee how the stiff, expectant air around Karen seemed to transform into a mist of uncertainty. That bemused look spread across her face like frost over a freshly painted windowsill. As I channeled my best motivational speaker vibes, I swear I could see sparks of rebellion igniting in my neighbor's eyes. It was like unearthing an old treasure chest of defiance. And here we were, ready to flaunt our vibrant historical legacy to the drabness that Karen embodied. Rita was slinging her hips in directions that made me think she could probably give any Zumba instructor a run for their money, and the chaos was spreading. Children were racing with makeshift banners, their laughter echoing like music to my ears. Honestly, if this wasn't the point when we all joined in a grand musical number, I didn't know what was. Karen cleared her throat, a sound akin to a lioness deep in her throat, and she finally found her voice, tightening her lips like a bowstring. "This is unacceptable," she declared, her tone sharper than it had any business being. It was as if she fully believed her words could conjure an arid wind to sweep away our festivity. The crowd fell quiet. Anticipation hung heavily like a piñata ready for bashing. "You are in violation of the HOA rules and regulations. All these trinkets and lights will have to be removed immediately. They're an eyesore, and certainly don't align with our neighborhood's standard." I could almost hear the faint sounds of a horror movie soundtrack rising in the background. Oh, but dear Karen, little did she know I had all our best dramas rehearsed. What flowed from my lips next, to my surprise, echoed the rallying battle cry of a civil rights leader basking in the glow of resolve. Karen, I began, emphasizing her name with as much sass as I could muster. What exactly are you afraid of? Culture? Color? Or perhaps a hint of fun? The crowd's tension morphed into a wave of suppressed chuckles, shining faces glancing back and forth between me and the towering figure of my HOA nemesis. The momentum had swung in our favor, like a pendulum that finally decided it was time to kick off the chains of conformity. This is the celebration of Kwanzaa, a time for unity, creativity, and sharing joy. If you can't see the beauty in it, well, that's on you. Rita, seizing her moment as my ultimate hype woman, added, Yeah, Karen, can't you feel the rhythm, the joy, the sheer abandon of cultural expression? This is about letting our flags fly, quite literally. The gathering erupted into the most glorious chorus of, Yes, girl, and you tell her. I dared say they sounded far more fabulous than any HOA meeting ever dared to muster up. If I squinted hard enough, I could almost see Karen's meticulously coiffed hair deflate a little, a metaphorical balloon punctured by the air of unity refuting her reign. The children danced about like miniature crusaders, refusing to let the suffocating authority of HOA hang over them like a rain cloud. Then there was Karen, primary antagonist of this whole cinematic adventure, shaken, furrowing her brow like she might just spit out a chaotic retort. Would she call in the big guns, threaten us with lawyers, or unleash her pièce de résistance, an emergency HOA convening on Christmas Eve? I was ready for anything. Am I really going to stand here and let you rain on this parade? I pondered out loud. Let's be real. What is an HOA without a little community chaos? We are living our best lives right now. Her cheeks flushed, the perfect portrait of outrage. I dared to bask in knowing that the HOA's mundane authority was dwindling by the minute. The standoff between our joyful celebration and Karen's iron-fisted vision of neighborhood order reached an absurd climax. As she adjusted her posture, attempting to pull back her once unshakable power, I felt my resolve fortify. This wasn't just about lights anymore. It was a manifestation of oppression. You know what, Karen? I said, raising my voice across the gathering crowd. If you don't let us celebrate as we see fit, I'd be more than overjoyed to orchestrate a Kwanzaa Lights Festival every single year, until you reconsider what this neighborhood could be. A kaleidoscope of history and unity. It struck me that my righteous enthusiasm was producing sparks of defiance in Rita and my other neighbors, like I'd ignited a wildfire. How beautiful. Suddenly, humor wrapped its arms around the scene, and I couldn't help but quote the age-old adage, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." So rather than fighting against the vibrant celebration thriving right outside your door, I continued, take a moment, Karen, and really experience it. Let our joyous screams break down that wall of entitlement you've constructed. Join us, enjoy the taste of jollof rice. Let the warm glow of our lights embrace you, even if just a little. I couldn't help but let out the biggest laugh at the absurdity of it all. Who knew the power of community joy could potentially take down the HOA? Would we witness the day when Karen joined our wild celebration? Or would she remain steadfast in her dreariness? Her face was a sight to behold, torn between outrage and disbelief, as she stood in front of this colorful onslaught of merriment. I could practically hear her inner turmoil about whether to accept our invitation or double down and stave off this cultural revolution. Whenever the world threw me challenges, I always believed laughter was the best antidote, so I broke into a giggle that echoed between the houses. Regardless of what she chose, hilariously and dramatically, the balance had shifted, and I was here to make Kwanzaa sparkle like never before. Would this be the beginning of a new era? An HOA that celebrates cultural diversity rather than quashes it? I suppose we'd find out sooner than later, after all. The night's still young. I watched with my heart in my throat as Karen's expression transformed from disbelief into an expression I can only describe as pure, unadulterated panic. The panic was palpable, almost tasting like burnt marshmallows at a campfire gone wrong. I could practically see the gears in her mind grinding. Should she call for backup? Build a barricade of HOA rules? And there, right in the eye of this absurd storm, stood me and my crew, all wrapped in the vibrancy of our kente cloth, radiating more unity than a family reunion barbecue. The kids, our delightfully chaotic cheerleaders, broke into a dance, their feet stamping a rhythm as loud as the ultimate rebuke to Karen's draconian reign. Honestly, it felt like a scene straight out of a feel-good movie, one where the underdogs join forces against the uptight villain, and hilarity ensues. I half expected to hear a sappy soundtrack swelling in the background of our epic showdown. Karen, let's not pretend like we want to step back into the monochrome world you seem to adore, I continued, eyebrows raised, lips curling into a cheeky grin like I was about to unveil the grand finale at a magic show. My voice reached a dramatic inflection only reserved for the final act of a Broadway hit. If you think you can just pull out your HOA rulebook and erase our culture with a sweeping wave of your hand, consider me your figment of imagination that just won't disappear. We have lights, we have laughter, and heaven knows, we have spirit. So, how about we turn this property into a vibrant tapestry instead? It was a tiny, self-satisfied cheer spilling from my lips that fueled my friends behind me to clap like mad. Every clap seemed to pierce through Karen's meticulously woven facade one enthusiastic beat at a time. Those thumbs began to fly up, bright signs of approval plastering neighborly grins eager to join our uprising. And that's when Rita, bless her creativity, took it upon herself to corner Karen ever so perfectly, like a wonderfully supportive best friend in a quirky rom-com. You know, Karen, these lights could really bring the neighborhood together, if you'd let them, she gestured wildly, throwing her arms wide to embrace the scene around us. We could have block parties, dance-offs, and who doesn't love a good food truck? Rita's infectious enthusiasm had me imagining a kaleidoscope of cheese-stuffed taco trucks wrangled together in the glow of our newfound freedom. I could practically taste the jollof rice and hear music spilling from every corner, wrapping around us like a warm blanket on a winter night. Come on, be the cool neighbor we know you can be. Karen, however, blinked at Rita as though she had just suggested we all toss our pristine white picket fences into a bonfire and host a drum circle. Her grip on that flimsy sheet of paper tightened like a lifeline, the sheer colorlessness of her soul reflected back in the fabric of her outfit, devoid of any ounce of revelry. That's the problem, she shot back, her voice cracking under the weight of disbelief. Do you mean to suggest that chaos should reign over our esteemed neighborhood? Oh, the delightful layers of hypocrisy wrapped around her words were akin to a soggy burrito wrapped in righteousness. Little did she know, her prestige was rapidly becoming the butt of our neighborhood jokes, and every fraught syllable just added fuel to our audacious fire. Either out of empathy or perhaps her own disillusionment, I saw a flicker of curiosity in the eyes of neighbors who were previously trapped in a trance of obedience. Ooh, look at that! A sprinkle of rebellion mixed in with the pumpkin spice of conformity. What's a little color and light? Chimed in old Mr. Garcia, the usually meek man from down the block. If I can have a salsa dancing party for my grandkids, I sure can see the beauty in lights. My heart somersaulted. Maybe we had more allies hiding behind their curtains than we could have dreamt. Each kindred spirit stepping forward seemed to chip away at the might of Karen's rulebook like a Sisyphus boulder tumbling from a mountaintop, and I was here for it. See? I shouted, gesturing toward Mr. Garcia with my best cheerleader enthusiasm. This is what happens when you imprison culture. You end up stifling the beautiful chaos of togetherness. The crowd began to morph, shifting from fearful constituents to fiery champions of whimsy. I could glimpse the neighbor who previously frowned at my lights now shimmying with newfound rebellion, directly behind Karen, summoning a supportive fist as they tried to withhold contagious giggles, erupting at the awkwardness of the scene. Sweet little Lily from next door, usually shy, twirled in circles, giving the impression that Karen's tangled authority was unraveling right before her eyes, showing off the liberating glow of unexpected possibilities. I felt the glorious tide of change building, washing over the dreary discontentment like paint-spattered graffiti over a dull wall. This informal assembly of misfits, parents, kids, retirees, and the ever-enthusiastic Rita dared to challenge the suffocating chill of conformity, and I reveled in the moment. You might think you hold the rulebook's all-powerful keys, Karen, I bellowed out, my arms wide open like I was ready to embrace a line of ecstatic neighbors. But this, I motioned toward the swirling streets of laughter and light, illuminated by the sheer magic of Kwanzaa decorations. This is where true influence lives. So tell us, what's it gonna be? The cheers of support exploded behind me, fortifying my stance with confidence, leaving Karen, now caught in our joyful revolution, contemplating whether to sink or swim in the waters of joyous empowerment. This was the dawn of something magical unfolding in front of our beautifully adorned homes, and as I stared down the gaze of the HOA queen, I had to wonder, would this spectacle of lights soften her heart, or would it be the cue for a dramatic exit? The energy crackled between us, pulsating with the potential for an unexpected alliance or a feisty civil war over holiday decor. What would the endgame be in this hilarious showdown? I stood, animated, ready to face whatever spectral response she had to this joyous representation of our community. The crowd's raucous laughter sang out, promising that, for tonight at least, we were unstoppable. Would the winds of change fill the sails of our colorful unity, or would they crash against the shores of entitlement? Thanks for sticking around with me through the chaos to the end. Want more high-stakes HOA drama? Check out our recent HOA clash with the video on the right. Or let YouTube pick your next wild ride with the video on the left. Whichever way you go, buckle up. There's plenty more HOA insanity on the way. Tune in again for more HOA chaos.